Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Centered Podcast. For those of you joining us for the very first time ever, my name is Anthony Ianni. I am your host. I am also a former Michigan State basketball player and the first Division I college basketball player in NCAA history with an autism diagnosis. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We got a great episode for you. If you want to hear more episodes of the Centered Podcast, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and radio.com. wherever you get your podcasts, and as well as our YouTube channel. So subscribe to the Centered Podcast on YouTube to see today's full video interview as well. Like, rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we appreciate your guys' support. So today's guest is somebody that I want to bring on and get to know a little bit more. This is an individual who I had the honor of being a teammate with for 1 year during my time at Michigan State. This was a guy who, basically bet on himself. And in my opinion, he won everywhere he went. And that's Brandon Wood. And for those of you that do not know Brandon Wood as much, let me give you a little background on him. Brandon Wood comes from Kokomo, Indiana. No, not Kokomo like the Beach Boys, Kokomo, Indiana. He is from Kokomo, where he went to Northwest High School, a 4-year letter winner for the Wildcats, and as well as a 2-time MVP for his team. He was all conference his junior and senior year. And he even holds the school record for most three-pointers in a single game, which was 10. I wish I could at least hit one triple during my college or high school career. And then he went on to play at Southern Illinois for a year, went on to play JUCO for Highland Community College, where he had great success there for 1 year. And before that season, he went on to sign with Valparaiso, where he had an incredible career at Valpo. He was second-team All-Horizon in 2010, where he was also the freshman and the newcomer of the year in 2010, his junior year. His senior year was his best year at Valpo. He was first-team All-Horizon League after averaging close to 17 points a game. And then he ended up coming to the good side. He ended up transferring to Michigan State University, where he helped our team win the Big Ten regular season and Big Ten tournament title and helping us earn a number 1 seed in the West region. And B. Wood has also played professionally overseas in Italy, Australia, Switzerland, Greece, Morocco, Mexico, just to name a few places. And he also got to spend at least a year in the NBA's G League with the Windy City Bulls. I'm very excited for you guys to enjoy this conversation with Brandon Wood. Hope you guys enjoy it. So B. Wood, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm actually wearing the jacket.
Is it black?
Yeah, it's the black with the stripes on it. So I had to wear it for our
Gotta represent.
Gotta represent, man. So well, first of all, like I said, man, it's good to see you. I feel like that, we haven't seen each other in a minute. I know you've been busy with everything, and but life's good, right? Life's good.
Yeah,
Right
life's been great, man. Yeah, definitely good to see you too, man. It's been great to follow you. Like you said, we both been kind of on our own journeys, traveling, trying to make a difference. So definitely it's been great to follow you and, continue to follow your family, continue to grow, so it's been great, bro. So much love to you, man. And definitely thanks for having me on here.
No, anytime, man. I mean, because when I was talking with my producer, Will, about who I wanted to bring on, you're one of the names that I wrote down. And so I'm excited for this, man. Cause like we talked about, like, I want to get to know you more, man. We know you for a while, but I definitely want to dig in a little bit more. So Kokomo, Indiana, man, you grew up there. What was growing up there as a kid?
I had a pretty solid upbringing. I started off, I was born in Kokomo, 1989. So born January 5th. Shortly after that, we moved to the East Coast. So my dad's family is mostly from the East Coast. So we traveled. We lived in Philadelphia, Stroudsburg, Washington, D.C., New Jersey. So we're kind of along the East Coast, just moving around with my dad and his family. So right before I started school, I moved back to Kokomo. So right before kindergarten, I moved back to Kokomo and started going to Northwestern School Corporation. Had a solid, real good, close-knit group of friends. Our families were real close. In Kokomo there in Howard County, there's, I believe, 6 schools. 5 of them, I believe, are in the county, 1 of them in the city. So the school corporation I was in the county. So me being a biracial kid, it was a predominantly white school. So that was great for my foundation to, kind of grow up, within a whole nother culture. Obviously my mother's white, my father's black, but to have that foundation and grow up and, have some of my best friends who are white and be able to spend the night in their house and play sports with them and travel and cry and laugh. I had a pretty solid foundation, there at Northwestern. So went to Northwestern up until high school, played all sports up until high school. Came time for high school and I had a decision I had to make whether I wanted to stay in the county and go to a county school or move into the city and go to the city school who played, a better schedule, more athletic players, it was a more diverse situation, so I moved into the city and, kind of got more of that, more diversity, I was, there's students from all over the world that, we had foreign exchange students. I was introduced to some good people from different countries. So got to move into the city and kind of continue to develop into a young man and kind of tap into just more of my culture, more of my father's culture, more of my Black culture, and just, whatever comes with that diversity. So my foundation growing up in Kokomo was pretty solid and kind of gave me a great perspective moving forward, going into school, gave me an open mind. And now being able to travel the world, it really set me up for, having that open mind and understanding at a higher level.
So how much do you remember of the bouncing back and forth on the East Coast from Philadelphia and the next place to the next place? What was that like, just to bounce from place to place, especially at a young age that you were at?
Yeah, I was real young, so there are some memories I have, but I don't necessarily remember like periods of time, really just like different flashbacks at different points and being in different places. But I can't really speak on the moving around affecting me at a young age because I was just, kind of just following my parents. But, my parents, you've met them, so much love to them. And they raised me and my sister very well, showed us how to treat people, how to, be a giver, really instilled that into us, So, those were pretty, I don't remember those years, but, it definitely were probably interesting.
So you talked about how going into high school, you were thinking about whether or not you wanted to stay in the county or you wanted to go to the bigger cities. What were kind of like the bigger cities that you thought about or your parents thought about having you go to when it came to the high schools? Like, was South Bend one of those places because of, maybe a little bit closer? Was Indianapolis on there?
Really, it was just Kokomo. So when I was coming up, like through elementary, I used to go, even though I went to Northwestern, I used to always go into the city and go to all the basketball camps. And we would even play against those teams. And I'll play other sports, baseball, football, with all those players that I eventually ended up moving in and going to school with. So I was familiar with all the players and the coaches. So at an early age, the coaches kind of put the bug in my parents' ear, and tried to pull us into the city and attend Kokomo. They thought it would be for my best interest moving forward as an athlete. Like I said, playing in one of the best conferences in Indiana, playing against the level of players we played against. It was a decision that it was kind of brewing over some years. But once I got to that point, it was pretty much a no-brainer. It was a decision that, I knew was in my best interest, for the vision I had for my career.
How big of a town is Kokomo?
I believe it's about 60, 70,000 people. But
okay.
It's growing though. It's growing.
Because any time, like, especially during our days, and I don't think I brought it up to you at all, but like whenever somebody mentioned Brandon Wood from Kokomo, Indiana, I don't know if you heard the Beach Boys song at all down in Kokomo. That's it.
I remember that coming up. Yeah, I'm sure everybody who's from Kokomo has heard that quite a bit. Not necessarily heard the song, but heard that reference.
You need to listen to the song and then you'll understand why.
Yeah, no, I've heard it, but yeah, I need to listen to it again. Actually, listen.
Oh man! All right. So growing up, was basketball always your sport, or did you have other sports that you were involved in as a kid growing up, or was it basically just basketball 24/7 for you?
Well, I mean, from when I believe I made my first shot when I was 2. So
Oh, wow.
basketball was definitely my main sport. I ended up playing, like I said, baseball, football, soccer. So I pretty much played all the sports up until high school. I was a very good baseball player. I always made the all-star team, and our all-star team where we played at Northwestern was always one of the best teams in the whole area. So, came time for the all-star tournaments, we would always advance and make it to the regionals. And we were actually one game from making it to the Little League World Series.
Oh,
We
wow.
got beat by a team that was also from our hometown. So yeah, I took baseball very seriously. We traveled around to the tournaments, pretty much just like AAU. But I played football till high school. Through 8th grade. I was always an athlete and talented, and probably just wanted to be out there because my friends played. I never really, to be honest, I was scared a lot of time out there on the football field. Like I wasn't really the football type, but I was good. But I knew football wasn't going to last long. And then baseball, I actually stopped right before Babe Ruth. And I remember basically they started throwing the ball too hard. Like I was probably scary. I was young and scary. Angeline back here laughing at me. But it sounds like I was scary when I was younger. So I'm like, man, they started throwing the ball pretty fast. And I played with like Brandon Beachy and like some well-known MLB players. So like I played against the best players, from 9 to 12, so I had a great experience growing up baseball, but yeah, they weren't for me, so once high school hit, it was strictly basketball.
So obviously you're in high school now, and basically you're on varsity from day one. So as a freshman in that environment, what was that kind of like for you? Was it a little intimidating for you because you were a freshman and you had the older guys on the team, like the seniors and the juniors? So was it a little intimidating being a freshman on varsity, or for you, was it just another day at the office because, you love the game of basketball so much?
Man, it really was. I was always comfortable. I never really felt that extra pressure. So when I remember tryouts, so the first day or two of tryouts, I went to the freshman tryout. And then they were like running along the same lines. I believe our freshman tryouts were at our high school, and our gym that we played in was kind of downtown, a whole separate arena, one of the biggest arenas in Indiana. So the first day or two, I was at the freshman tryout. And then after that, the varsity coach, Mike Wade, he, brought me into his office and told me that, I'd finish the week of tryouts with the varsity and the junior varsity. So finished the week. And my freshman year, I played JV the whole year, and I only dressed a few games. I remember I got in against Lawrence North. So I got in like at the end of the game, and that was Mike Conley and Greg Oden's team. So, and one of my boys, Brandon McPherson. So I remember I got in as a freshman, and we had to be getting blown out, because I was in the game. And I remember Conley was still in the game. I don't know why they still had him in. The game was probably over with. So I remember Conley he caught the ball on the right wing and kind of faced me up. And I'm a freshman. I'm young. I'm frail. I'm just out there. I'm just like, man, I hope he doesn't drive, because I know there's no chance I'm going to be able to stay in front of him. So luckily he just pulled it up. He just pulled the three and set up for the three. But yeah, and I got in against Carmel. Josh McRoberts played for them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was, when we were in high school, especially Indiana basketball, there was a lot of big time players, not only in our conference and on our team, but, all the way around the state, so I wasn't a freshman who just got to high school and went straight to varsity. I had to, kind of work my way up. And my sophomore year, I started the season varsity, I think like a game or two into the season, I started starting. And then I had like one game against Tipton, the city. It's like 20 minutes outside of Kokomo. So it's kind of a local school, but it's outside of the county. I had a game against them as a sophomore where I had 31. And that kind of was like my breakout game. And, ever since then, pretty much one of the featured players.
So I got to ask you this question because, like you said, you mentioned Mike Conley, you mentioned Greg Oden.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that team my junior year of high school and just like watching Greg Oden, like that was a man amongst boys out there, man. So was it just a different vibe when he was on the court? Because here's this 7-foot monster just warming up on the court. Like, did he have that? Was the hype real?
It definitely was, just, him being so tall. There weren't very many, I don't think he might've been the only 1 or 2 footers that were in his class in Indiana, so we never, back then, you really didn't have too many. It didn't seem like there was as many footers, and taller players. So,
right.
Yeah, so it was like, it was rare to play against him. So obviously you look forward to play against a player like him just to see how tall he is, let alone the buzz from the fans and them, coming to the game. So I remember like the memory I always tell when I'm talking about Greg Oden, it was the same game where I got in at the end. So I remember early in the game, he went up for a dunk and he missed it. Like he missed the dunk. And when he missed it, I think throughout my whole high school career, and maybe even my first couple of years of college, that was the loudest I've ever heard a gym. Like it was so loud. Like it was, cause you got to imagine the shock of him missing the dunk.
Right.
So it was just shocking to where like everybody just like went crazy, so yeah, but it was, playing against him, playing against Mike Conley, Eric Gordon, who else? Like I said, Josh McRoberts, Dominique James, man, there's so many players I can name, but AJ Ratliff. I don't know if you remember AJ Ratliff.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Cordell Pasley. Man, there was so many great players in Indiana. And that's not even really including any from my class, Jeff Teague, who else? Eric Gordon. Just so many players, So it was, even going up through AAU, playing against all them players in AAU, we've all played against each other growing up. So, it was Indiana basketball. The hype is real. I
was going to say, too, because, like, the state of Michigan, in my opinion, I think the state of Michigan is probably known more for football because when I was in high school, you had all these great players. Nowadays you see a lot of these state of Michigan players going to prep school because the competition isn't as much. But I always felt like, whenever somebody asks me, what is the best high school basketball state in the country? I mean, I flat out always say Indiana because, and you live there,
Yeah.
And anybody who plays basketball in Indiana basically lives, breathes, eats, and worships basketball. It's like Alabama football. Like you love football down at the University of Alabama. Same with that fan base. But like I've always felt like Indiana, if you're playing basketball in the state of Indiana, you are probably shooting in your backyard. Or if you live on a farm, you got a basketball hoop on the farmhouse and you are shooting. And so I've always felt like Indiana is the basketball state out of all 49, 50 states in the country.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think the movie Hoosiers, I think that kind of it kind of made it more known, and more recognized at a national level. So, right. Yeah, I mean, that's a classic, I bet you probably never even seen Hoosiers. She hasn't seen, man. She hasn't seen no classics, man. She was prime.
The wife has never seen Hoosiers.
Man, you'd be surprised all the movies that she hadn't seen before we met. Crazy.
That sounds like my best friend from high school. He has never seen the movie Rudy or Hoosiers. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? Like, those are classics. Like, how in the world have you not seen two of the most classic sports movies in history? He's like, no. I'm like, jeez. Yeah. So your high school career, man, I mean, it's a great one. I mean, you were a 2-time team MVP. You were first team all conference and as a junior and a senior. You were second team as a sophomore, so now you're making your way up. You were all state, all county. I mean, your numbers as a senior, you were 21 points a game, 19 points a game as a junior. You had a great career. So my next question to you is, when did you realize, okay, the possibility of playing college basketball is real? Like, when did that kind of get in your head a little bit that, okay, I'm having a great junior year. I had a good sophomore season. Now the thought of playing college ball at the next level on the horizon. When did that start to enter your mind?
I think probably even a little earlier than that, just probably coming up in middle school, finishing middle school, entering high school, just playing AAU, because AAU, I'm not sure. Obviously, the circuit has changed completely, since we played AAU. Yep. But it was, AAU back when we played was pretty much how you got your college looks, So my parents kind of made sure to kind of put me in the right position at an early age, whether it's through AAU, AYBT, and just traveling and playing with different teams, whether it's the best team or not. Most of the times I played on like one of the lower level teams, so I really got some exposure at a younger age. So I was already getting letters as a freshman going into my sophomore year before I even had played varsity yet, so it wasn't offers, but it was, like a good amount of letters to where I'm like, I never had any doubt, it was kind of just like transition into it. And I just kind of, whether I was trying out for the freshman team or whether I had to play JV, I kind of just focused on controlling what I could, so I think when it really, Southern Illinois, that was the first school that really was recruiting me very hard. And it was probably like the first school. And I remember I was getting like 50 pieces of mail a day, like no lie, just, not even from them, from all types of other mid-majors. I could have probably went to any mid-major, so I was just getting a bunch of mid-major mail, throughout the years. But I knew it was realistic early, and moving on into my high school career, my sophomore year, when I kind of had my breakout season, that was the best high school team I played on. We won the sectional championship. We won the first game in the regionals, and then we got beat in the regional championship. So that was kind of like would have been like the Elite Eight, I think, where we got beat. So, but after that, I had our teams weren't that great. We just, we had some good players, some good guys, but, as a team, we weren't the best, but kind of another kind of storyline of my high school career was like, I had a different coach every year. So like, really? So when I first came in, obviously I played JV and varsity. So I had Coach Snyder, my guy, Jason Snyder, and Coach Wade, who was the varsity coach. My sophomore year, Coach Wade was still there. So I kind of had Coach Wade a year and a half, like 2 years. And then he stepped down, and Coach Baumgartner, a very well-known Rick Baumgartner. I don't know if you heard the name.
I've heard the name, yeah.
Yeah, very well-known coach in Indiana. He was my coach my junior year, and then he left. And then Brian McCauley, who was a former player at my high school, who was Mr. Basketball, one of the best players to play as a Wildcat, who I had played against like in some summer tournaments in the past, and we beat up on. So it was like I had a kind of series of coaches that kind of led to me finishing my high school career, being coached by a great coach, but first year coach, I believe, who was trying to find his way. And, I was a senior, I was ready to get to school, but it was, definitely didn't have the typical coaching pattern of a, high school career. But one thing I kind of take away from that I try to talk to parents about and talk to different players, because you see so much complaining about the coaches and what's going on in the system. And it's like, and my story, even after high school, it gets even more, all over the place, different coaches. But that kind of just tells me it's like, it's just an excuse when I hear it. It's like, no matter who's the coach, no matter what the system is, no matter what plays are called, if you are driven enough and you know, are aware enough on the court and know your role and know when to make a play within the play, it's like no coach will hold you back. So that's one thing I try to really, I know it's hard for parents and kids to understand these days because they're, you know, they want everything to be right, perfect from the jump, you know, but yeah, I mean, playing for different coaches definitely has helped me in the long run.
See, that was one thing I didn't know. Like you played for like several different coaches in high school, and like you said, it set you up for the future. So you commit to Southern Illinois. You're there for a year. So obviously, during what was there anything you learned just from that 1 year at Southern Illinois, and then what was the decision for you to move on from Southern Illinois?
Man, that year was tough, bro. Man, that was a tough year. You know, leaving high school, having, you know, such big expectations, having the coaches from Southern Illinois, you know, we built a great relationship with them, you know, for years, you know, at that point before we made the decision, you know, so to get there, get to campus. And first off, I wasn't able to participate in the summer workouts going into my freshman year. Before my senior season, I had dislocated my shoulder, and I played with it through my senior season. It happened like one more time. It originally happened at an open gym at my high school, and then it happened two more times. One time when I was in swim class, I was backstroking, hit the lane line, and my shoulder popped out. And then I think the final time I was playing at the park, you know, probably playing for some money or something, went up for a dunk, and like the shoulder just came out. And I remember I was like trying to bang it against the pole, trying to put it back in. So just decided to just get the surgery, get surgery. You know, obviously I really didn't have any pain, you know, but the ligament was so weak. It was like I pretty much had to get it repaired, you know, so really wasn't, there was no second thought, you know, I just got the surgery, did some rehab at a local therapy place, and went to Southern Illinois. I was there on campus, but I couldn't participate in none of the cardio, none of the workouts on the court, off the court. So coach that was there, his style really didn't align with anyone, you know, let alone a young boy who's trying to develop into a man. So really, like, a lot of the players who I was at Southern Illinois with ended up transferring, you know, and it was like, we've played for all different types of coaches, you know, coaches challenge you and hold you accountable and, you know, push different buttons to kind of, you know, bring the best out of you in most cases, you know, but I believe there's a balance and a fine line to where it gets, you know, belittling, you know, and demeaning, and, you know, you're starting to question yourself as a man, you know, and you're challenging me as a man, and I'm just a young man, you know, I'm not there yet, you know. So that year, man, my mind was all over the place. Like I was on the wrong track. You know, I completely lost the love for the game. I completely lost my confidence. I was off the court just, you know, partying, you know, I wasn't playing because I got hurt about 6 games into the season. So like that year, I was really just kind of going to school and really just going to school, you know. So that was a tough year, but in the long run, it really paid off. Like I learned a lot.
And so you leave Southern Illinois, you go to JUCO for Highland Community College, and you had a good 1 year career there. So now you're in other schools to look at you. Was Valparaiso that one school that jumped, you know, recruiting you right from the get-go, or were there other schools involved in the process as well?
So when I first we ended up parting ways from Southern Illinois, opened up my recruitment, and I knew I didn't want to go straight to a Division I, even though I could have, because I would have been pretty much sitting out 2 straight years because I medical redshirted my first year. So I'm like, you know, at this point where I'm at mentally, for me to set out a whole nother year where I'm already at mentally, I remember calling my parents and telling them I didn't really want to play basketball, you know, to pursue it in the future anymore. I just wanted to come back home and play at a smaller school and just kind of get my education. So where I was at mentally, there was no way I would have been able to sit out another year. You know, there's no telling what would have happened. So, you know, I'm like, man, I can. One of my friends who I played in high school against, Lamar Lee, he was at the same type of point in his career. He was transferring from Evansville or Indiana State. So he was transferring from Indiana State. So he had already committed to Highland before I decided to transfer, or we decided to part ways from Southern Illinois. So when he heard that my recruitment was open, he was the first person who called me. And, you know, if you know Lamar, he's smooth with words, you know, and we had history together. So it was a great situation, but, you know, he kind of delivered it in a way to where I'm like, man, that's where I'm supposed to be. You know, I need to go to Highland. You know, I will go to Division I, because at that point I'm like, I might just decide to go back closer to home and maybe sit out that year. But talking to Lamar, he kind of sparked that energy back into me. And, you know, he was already close with the coach there, Pete Norman, who had built up a great program there at Highland. So he was familiar with Pete. You know, at the JUCO level, there's, you know, you never know what type of situation you're going to get, you know. So we had our own apartments, we had our own meal plans. You know, all our school was going to be paid for, so we were going to be on scholarship. You know, it was real comfortable, you know, real comfortable situation. It was all Division I transfers. So it was like a group of players that were kind of all on the same mission. You know, we just left Division I, now we're at JUCO. Now we're trying to, you know, make our way back out of here. You know, so it was a great situation. So I signed with them. I showed up there. I think I played like one or two open gyms, and before we even started like really getting going, Homer and Bryce Drew had already heard that I had transferred and went JUCO, and that, you know, following that year, I will, you know, be needing somewhere else to go and finish my career. So Homer and Bryce, I remember they came to like the first open gym that we had at Highland, and this is like, and there was like a bunch of, at that point I hadn't really played much, you know, so going to Highland, the players that was there, I was like, you know, I knew I was a great player, but I'm like, man, they're all more athletic than me. They're all faster. So it was like, and it was kind of similar to where I went from when I went to Valpo to Michigan State, kind of the similar type feel, you know. So I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to necessarily be a starter or be a big time player on this JUCO team. But, you know, Homer and Bryce are here at the first open gym, you know, and telling me about, you know, how much they want me to come, telling me about their schedule for the next year, kind of catching me up with Bryce and kind of where the program has been in the past. So I ended up committing to Valpo before we even started JUCO practice. Okay. So I was already sure of the decision, you know, and that's kind of like a part of my story, you know, like, you know, that's kind of like a risk. You know, I could have played, I've taken a lot of risks. You know, I could have played the whole season and my recruitment would have been open and I could have went anywhere, you know, but it's like whenever I've felt like a situation was for me, like I never second guessed it. You know, I just make the decision. So that was one of those decisions where I'm like, I'll be committed to Valpo. They have a great non-conference schedule next year where they play at North Carolina, at Michigan State, at Ball State. We have a tournament in Georgia. The Horizon League was, you know, coming up. You know, it was a good up-and-coming league. So I committed there before the season started at Highland. Had that chance to play that year, continue to recover from my shoulder injury, get my confidence back, get the love for the game back, and, you know, just be on the court with a free mind. You know, so I stayed healthy and was able just to hoop. You know, and we had a great team. We went in the regional championship. We went to the national tournament, and we lost in the first game. We got cheated. We kind of got cheated, you know? But I ain't gonna go there. But lost the first game and then won out. So we ended up finishing 7th. You know, so had a great JUCO experience. Great team, great coach, great players. So it was, you know, definitely fortunate to have that experience at the JUCO level. You know.
And obviously the decision to commit to Valpo, it was a great one for you. I mean, if you look at your career at Valpo after that, I mean, you were the Horizon League Freshman of the Year, the Newcomer of the Year, and by your senior year. and this is how I remembered you before you transferred to Michigan State. You guys played us your first year, at Valpo, and we were coming off so our schedule was weird. It was like the Spartan Classic or whatever. So we played one game against, I can't remember who the team was, but we played one team one day, and then we had a practice day, and then we were playing you guys. Well, on the scouting report, it specifically said, don't let wood get open or shoot. Now, we may have won the game, but the one thing I remember about that game was you dropping 21, 22 points on us. So
24.
Oh, okay, my bad. 24. But even just so this was the year that I had to sit out from transferring. Sitting there and just watching you, I was like, man, Valpo's got something with this kid. And it was true. In the following year, you were first team all league, all Horizon. You averaged close to 17 a game, and you had a pretty good solid career at Valpo. Now, you had a good run with Valpo, but what was kind of the decision for you to go, you know what? I've done this at Valpo. I've done that. I was newcomer of the year. I was first team this year. Maybe I need to take my game to the next level. Maybe I need to go to someplace where I can really show that, hey, I've done this at Valpo, but I could do this at this level. So was that kind of your thinking process, when you were leaving Valpo?
Yeah, most definitely. But first off, a big part of Valpo was just my relationship with Homer Drew and Bryce Drew. Yep. So after I committed to Valpo, went home for the summer, went back to Valpo, to get ready. Actually, I didn't go home for the summer. Before I came to campus at Valpo that summer, Homer Drew sent me on a Athletes in Action trip over to Europe. So that was my first time going to Europe. Okay. So, that was one of the first opportunities he kind of brought to the table. And it's he just I don't know if have you met Homer?
I've not met him, but I've heard some. Him and his son, man. They are
they're amazing.
They are.
Man, it's hard to even put into words, but man, so I went on that trip to Athletes in Action, great trip, got the first chance to experience life overseas in Europe. We went to Poland, we went to Germany. We got the chance to go to all the concentration camps. So we got a real big dose. It was a missions trip, and we played 5 games, so it was a chance to, study the Bible some. It was actually the first time. It was actually when I asked God to come into my life on that trip. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I give Homer a lot of the credit for everything, because he really opened me up spiritually, Yeah. So went on that trip, arrived at Valpo, and Bryce Drew. We've watched him coming up. His big shot that he made at Valpo, amazing career that he went on to play in the league, so not only to be able to play with Homer, but to be able to play for his son who had already been there and done that, and he knew what it takes to get to the next level, whether it's the NBA or overseas. So I understood the value of playing with him and trying to soak up as much as I can from him. So they really, they put me in a position from the beginning to, play to my strengths. I'm a scorer. I like the ball in my hands, so they allow me to be myself, and to have the opportunity at that level to play against that type of schedule. It really gave me a chance and a platform to flourish, so I just put in the work and kind of just took advantage of it. Had big games, had all the awards my first year. Going into my second year, Bryce really wanted me to work on becoming more of a leader. I had always, up until that point, I pretty much just try to lead by my production, and my doing my part, so he really stressed to me the importance.
Leading by example.
Yeah. He kind of, but not necessarily leading by example in practice though. It was mostly I would want to lead by example in the games. I wasn't ready. I wasn't there yet, so going into my second year of Valpo, that's when he started to kind of stress to me the importance of, leading in practice, leading the drills and being the first player. And, you always hear that, but when you start going to different levels and higher levels with higher players that have been there, it's like you find the reasoning behind it, you know. So I really kind of started to grow by leading by example that second year of Valpo. Started to be more vocal, you know, trying to just get uncomfortable, you know. So second year of Valpo, we made strides as a team. We won more games. We were a better team. Personally, I was a better leader, better player, and starting to grow up, you know. So following the year, my second year of Valpo, I graduated, you know. So I graduated on time, you know. My second year of Valpo, had the opportunity to, since I graduated, I could either put my name in the draft and just leave it in the draft and just see what happens. I could just put my name, I could just go overseas. You know, I could just, since I graduated, I could just foregone my 5th year eligibility and just went overseas. Or I could have came back to Valpo and went to my 5th year and just completed my college career there, my 5th year. So I ended up putting my name into the draft because I knew I had one more year, only had one more year. So it was like,
right.
Yeah, I put my name in the draft, you know, I could take it back out, you know, I get the feedback, you know, I talked to some different people and got the feedback that I was looking for. And, you know, so upon that conversation, so, you know, at the end of the season, you have like the conversation with the coach and with your parents, you know, and you kind of assess the season and, you know, talk about the season, maybe what's next. And that's what we were talking about, those decisions, you know. And at the time, my name was in the draft. So I decided to put my name in the draft, go through the process to get the feedback. And at the meeting, we talked about those first 3 options. And then at the end, you know, Homer and Bryce were kind of leading the meeting up until that point. And at the end, my dad was in there as me, my dad, my mom, my sister. And my dad, he was like, you know, Homer, Bryce, you know, we're aware that there's another option, you know, for Brandon to, you know, further his college career. And immediately they just turned bloodshot red. You know, they just turn red. You know, then my guys, you know, they great people. I talked to Homer. I actually go to lunch with Homer Thursday. But yeah, like at that moment, the shock of them hearing that option and that we were considering it was probably a complete shock, you know. I don't even know. We weren't really aware of the rule. So I definitely don't think that I don't know if they knew we were aware of it or not, because we had really just found out about it about a week or so before even making the decision. So really, like, us bringing it to the table was like it was completely out of left field, you know. So it kind of caught them off guard, you know. So the athletic director was in there as well. Mark LaBarbera, great guy, you know, always supported me throughout my years there. So they asked us to step out of the room, me, my mom, and my sister to step out of the room and wanted to talk to my dad for a minute. So they're sitting there talking to him and kind of going back and forth, you know, might not, you know, just giving their opinions, you know, to the situation, their opinions upon short notice, you know. So they were talking about it, and, you know, a few minutes later, we leave the meeting. And at that point, we hadn't really committed to make the decision. But at that point, I pretty much knew that, like, man, I get this opportunity. I graduated. I feel like I don't know what much more besides winning more and being a better team and winning the conference and going to the tournament. As an individual, there's really nothing more I could have done at Valpo, you know, from a personal standpoint. So I'm like, you know, okay, if I come back to Valpo, I'm pretty sure I'll have preseason player of the year, have a pretty good chance of winning the player of the year, first team. You know, I was just first team. So I'm like, man, just me being the type to kind of bet on myself. I'm like, man, I get this opportunity. I just graduated. I had a great season. I was fully committed to Valpo, fully committed. Everywhere I've went, whether I'm near a year or a couple months, I'm all in, you know. So I'm like, man, I open my recruitment up and I can go anywhere in the country. Like, this is a dream that you never would have even imagined, you know. So went home, we did the paperwork. We did the paperwork I had to send, like, because the schools couldn't reach out to me. So I had to send a letter to the schools letting them know that I was transferring. So once I did that, you know, schools started calling Izzo, Coach Painter, I remember UConn. I got a call from UConn, Florida State, I believe. So there was a few schools that were interested, but it came down between Michigan State and Purdue. And upon the feedback that I got from the draft, when I put my name in, obviously I was, great scorer, great player, but I wasn't the toughest, and I wasn't the best defender, because I wasn't, defense is just, you got to want to do it. It's like every player I feel like reached a point to where it's like, or if you're not, you got to reach that point to where you got to buy in and want to play defense, so I'm like, the NBA people are telling me they're telling me to work on this. So I'm like, what better place to go to than Michigan State? And then I'll just kill all that noise, So I'm like, that's why I made the decision to go to Michigan State, not only because of Izzo and the tradition and the family, but from the information I got, they wanted me to work on my toughness and my defense. So, hey, I'm going to go be a Spartan.
I know when I think it was might have been our last week of classes we had, we all got that text and phone call. Iz called me too. Because I don't know I don't think I told you this or not, but had you not come to Michigan State, the scholarship that they were going to give to you would have been given to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember this phone call. So Iz called me. I was out in my parents' neighborhood, and they live close to a park. So I drove my car at the park, and I decided to go for a run in the park. And my phone rings. And it's from an unknown number. I'm like, okay, chances are it's probably Coach Iz, because he likes to call from a private number. So I pick it up, and he's like, hey, hi, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just out running right now. I said, getting ready for finals. He's like, all right, I'm good to hear that. He said, listen, I got some news to tell you. He's like, I got good news and bad news. The good news is we're getting Brandon Wood. Brandon's going to be an incredible addition for us next year. He's going to help us out a lot. He's going to help us win next year. I was like, oh, like, that's great. Like, I'm excited. He goes, but the bad news. I'm like, yeah, I know the bad news. I said, that scholarship's going to him. He's like, look, like, if he wasn't coming here, that scholarship is going to be yours. I was like, I said, me, would I love to have it? Absolutely. But for me, I want to go out my senior year the right way, and that's winning a championship, and that's winning. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward 4 months later, DeJuan Anderson leaves, and that scholarship ended up being mine. So it all worked out, in the end for everybody. But so I got to ask you this. So now you get to Michigan State. You were probably aware that we had a bad year before that. We were 19-15 before you got there. And I want to bring up the initiation to Spartan Dog, family, which was the wall sit. Kenny Goins and I had this conversation, and Kenny was like, oh, maybe one of the worst initiations I've ever had in my life. Mm-hmm. So I asked him what was his thought process about that whole thing. And I want to ask you, as we're stacking 100-pound sandbag and then another 100, then another 100. Yeah. What was that mindset for you? Was it like, oh man, like what did I get myself into? Or was it this is what I need? If I'm going to be tougher, this is what we're going to go through at Michigan State. These are the workouts we're going to do. This is what I signed up for.
Yeah, it was like, man, I was all in, just to have the opportunity to enter a program like that at that level, at that point in my career, I was ready for whatever, so those weight sessions that we had, they definitely were, a completely different level than what I was ever used to. I always lifted weights and did all that through high school. It wasn't until my year of my JUCO where I started to learn how to work on my own, and push myself and, physically, mentally, and, whether I'm by myself in the weight room, which I am most of the time now, and I'm able to really push myself, or with the whole team, so to have that experience, to be in the atmosphere of, the whole team right there and us having the bags on our legs and just the intensity of the players and Fork as the coach. And, I never had experienced that, so it was like a lot of those times, a lot of those moments that were probably kind of second nature for you all because you've been there. It was like my adrenaline was rushing, I'm not even like, it's still to this day kind of doesn't completely set in that I was a Michigan State Spartan and I was that big of piece of the team and had a chance to play under all the alumni and under Izzo, and it's still surreal, so being in those weight sessions, and not only the weight with the squats and the wall sets, just being in there with the football team. You hear people talk about that, but it's like, no, that's real. Like, we really were in there with the football team, at the same times, so I think that's kind of what develops from my 1 year of being there. From my perspective, stuff like that is what kind of develops the mentality, what I learned, what it took to be a Spartan, so just the toughness and that intensity. And it was like, it was just, it's hard to explain.
And I think that's the one thing that people don't understand sometimes. We always talk about family in Michigan State. We talk about it all the time. But how tight knit we were with everybody. From you talked about the football team. Like, we would challenge each other. Football would challenge us. We would challenge them. Like, if we were bringing more energy, they weren't. Like, we would get on them about it. So in a sense, we kind of made each other better. But it wasn't just the football team. We were tight with the hockey team, with the wrestling, track and field, volleyball, girls basketball. And that's why, like, when people talk about family, I'm always like, yeah, we are very tight knit because we all went through the trenches together. We all supported each other. And I think that's why, man, we had such a good locker room chemistry that year. Because the previous year before, the locker room chemistry wasn't as strong. And I think this is where I give, Draymond, Day so much credit, was that he kind of held the locker room together that year before you got there. And then when the group of seniors leave, and now it's you, me, Austin, and Day, that group of seniors, now it's like, okay, this is our team. This is our year. And this is how we're going to run things in the locker room. Like, we're going to keep it tight knit. We're going to joke with each other, and we're going to have some fun. And I feel like that was probably, and I don't know if you feel this way or not. I think that was probably the most tight knit team when it came to locker room chemistry and camaraderie that I've been a part of, maybe since my high school days. Like, I don't know if you feel like that at all.
No, for sure, man. And just kind of to go back to my pursuit of learning what a leader was, and becoming a leader myself, transitioning from my first year of Valpo to my second year, and then from my second year of Valpo to Michigan State. So, I remember talking to Izzo, and shortly after me committing, or about to make a decision, Draymond calling and, kind of giving me a rundown of the program, and first off introducing himself, and us kind of catching up, and, just kind of telling me what I'll be getting myself into if I were to make this decision. He understood that I was an experienced player at that point, because it was my fifth year, but they both let me know, it wasn't going to be easy, so I never expected it to be easy, and to hear a player like that and have a coach like that. And I never, up until that point, I probably have never played with a real leader. I played with, I'm not going to say that, I don't want to discredit any players I played with before, because, playing with Brandon McPherson and Howard Little and, different players that I played at Valpo, they're definitely leaders. But, having the chance to, be in the locker room when Draymond's in there holding us all accountable, I've never had that. I've never had another player hold me accountable. I probably was looked at to be the one to do the holding accountable, but I just wasn't prepared at that point, so to get that experience and just the talks that we had as a team, they got deep. We talked about real stuff. Like, when we were going through stuff as to a team or individuals, like, we would really stay in the locker room and be in there just as a team, no coaches, and, just whoever's talking, whether it's AT or Draymond, just holding us accountable, so I never really experienced that to that point. But, Draymond was able to do that because he held himself to that level of accountability, and that was just instilled into him from Coach Izzo for those years. And to where at that point, it's like me, I'm an experienced player, but it's like this is my first experience with what I would say a leader. He really introduced me to what a leader was. So ever since then, I've tried to kind of take parts of that, and now I feel like I've developed into a better leader, always learning and steady trying to get better. But Draymond was, he introduced me to what a leader was. So, I say that a lot, and I'll probably say it way more times throughout my lifetime. But, I definitely appreciate him for that, holding, myself accountable and, holding us accountable, and you see how it played out.
Yeah. And I think that's why, man, like we were so successful that year was because, number one, we had that leadership, whether it came from Day, whether it came from AT, you or me, like it didn't matter. Like we all had something to give, and, we all led in different ways. And like you said, holding each other accountable, whether it was on the court, off the court, like that, holding each other that accountability, I think is what made us even stronger as a team and even more tight knit. Because if guys were slacking, like you weren't afraid to call somebody out about it in front of the team. Whereas I feel like that today's day and age, like if you get called out in front of the team, if you're on a college team today, you get called out by your own teammate. I don't think they can handle it as well.
Yeah.
Whereas us, if Day called us out, it's like, okay, I got you. If you called me out, or if I called out, Adrian Payne or Derek Nix, it's like, okay, I got you. We're going to do this right. And so
it's proper ways to do the calling out,
First off,
you have to be leading by example,
Yeah.
So if you're not leading by example, it's hard to call people out, but yeah, they definitely, we all set the tone in our different ways, but yeah, we had a great team, and that was a special year.
We did. And that was a year too, man, where nobody thought we would win the Big Ten championship. Like I remember on media day, like nobody even had us in the top 5 preseason picks. And I remember, as we were doing media day, and Joe Rexroad, who was writing for the Lansing State Journal at the time, Joe's with in Nashville now covering the Tennessee Titans. But he asked me the question, what's it going to take, for this team to be successful? And I flat out told him, I said, the toughest team in our conference will win the Big Ten championship. Said that's going to be us. And he wrote the next day, he's like, I don't know how much that prediction is going to come true or not, but I like the optimism. But again, like nobody gave us a chance. And you look at our schedule, man. North Carolina on the aircraft carrier to start off, which we'll talk about that in a minute. And then Duke. So we're playing number 1 and number 5 teams in the country back to back. And I remember after we lost to Duke, Coach Iz just came in the locker room after the game. And he's like, look, learn from these 2 losses. Let's get better. And then we knock out 15 wins in a row after that. Now we're all looking at each other like, yeah, we didn't go anywhere. We had to adjust, and now we're back, and you guys wrote us off. But the aircraft carrier, man, I want to talk about that with you, because I like to tell people that that experience alone beats any Big Ten title or any Final Four team that I was a part of. That experience of itself was just –
that was amazing.
That was unbelievable. I remember when we got out, when we landed in San Diego, we didn't go straight to the hotel. We went right to the USS Carl Vinson to tour the entire thing. And I remember, man, just how cool that whole scene was. And then we all tried. I didn't do this, but I think you, Day, and AP did it. Adrian Payne. You guys were trying to lay in those bunk beds.
Oh, yeah.
That the soldiers lay in. And I remember AP just trying to squeeze himself in the middle bunk. I was like, man, like, I don't know how these guys do what they do.
Yeah.
It was just incredible, man. Like that's an experience. And that's the other thing probably you were excited for when you signed at Michigan State was, I'm going to get experiences that nobody else can get in the country.
Yeah. It was, it's kind of similar to, now that I think about it, to when I decided to go to Valpo, and just kind of how I looked at the Michigan State and North Carolina game that year. So that year, not only did I have a good game, we got smacked by y'all, but that year when I went to Valpo, we went to North Carolina, and I scored 30 at North Carolina as a sophomore. So I believe at the time I was the only underclassman to ever score 30 in the Dean Smith Center.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of relate that to those first 2 games when I opened up my recruitment to pursue my 5th year. So when I'm committed to Michigan State, and now I get the chance, Izzo's telling me about the first game on the aircraft carrier, and then second game at the Garden against Duke. I don't think at the time I knew the significance of the aircraft carrier, because I don't think I knew the details. But, once the details started coming out, and it's like, man, to get the chance to open up the season with those 2 games, it's like, what better win or lose, you know, whether you win by 50, lose by 50, or lose by a buzzer beater. It's like to open the season against North Carolina, which was my dream school, you know, to open the season against them, you know, we were both one of the top teams in the country. I don't think we really had big expectations to win those games, you know, because I feel like we knew where we were at. We knew that, you know, we get through these 2 games, you know, we pull them off, you know, we believe we could, but I believe our vision was a little bigger, you know, to where it's like, let's get through these 2 games. They're both, you know, nationwide, nationally televised games, you know, and let's get through these games and then get focused and go on our run. So, yeah, to play again in front of President Obama, Michelle Obama.
That was crazy.
They're sitting courtside. Yeah.
Like you said, like we didn't really understand the significance of it because, you know, Mark Hollis, who was the athletic director at the time, he was showing like the outlines and the drawings of what this arena was going to look like. And I remember, like me and Day looked at it together and we were just looking at each other like, how is this going to work? Like, but again, I'd never been on an aircraft carrier. I've seen one, but we had no idea what this was going to look like. And when we got on the aircraft carrier and when we see the court, it's like, man, like this, to quote Mike Garland, this boat, if you will, was bigger than what any of us could ever imagine. But we had no idea the Obamas were going to be there until before.
Yeah, man, I remember the game, like before the game when we lined up with North Carolina lined up, lined up, and, you know, you look and see all the Secret Service people around, and, you know, you hear the whispers, and I believe somebody told me that there were submarines, which I believe, you know, there were submarines around there. Like, so like to put it in perspective, like the magnitude of the presence of the people we were in, it was, it wasn't even, it's hard to explain. You know, Obama's walking through the line, shaking our hands. Man, it was amazing. It was amazing.
I remember because you bring up the submarine. So after the game, when they left, and remember how like they leave, but you couldn't move, like you had to stay in your spot.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember that at all. But I was standing next to a soldier and I asked him, I said, sir, I was like, how come we have to stand here? Like, when do we get to go? Like, when you move? He said, we don't move until they get across the bay, get on Air Force One and take off. So that could be like 15, 20 minutes. I was like, well, I'm like, okay, I understand, but what happens, say, if I took one side step to the right? What would happen? He goes, come here. He said, you see the tower right there? I'm like, yeah. He said, you see that little shadowy figure up there? I'm like, yeah. He said, yeah, I'm going to tell you what he's holding right now, but if you took one side step to the right, I said, it would not be a great day for you. I'm like, oh, okay. So we all kind of got our taste in what it's like to be around, you know, the leader of the free world and the first lady. But that man was, I mean, we talked about, that's an experience we're never going to forget. Like,
never, man. And I remember because I believe like a couple weeks before that, Obama was in my hometown in Kokomo.
Oh, okay.
And he was like playing, like, I don't know if he had a rally and was playing some basketball. He actually was playing basketball with my brother-in-law, Jarab, Ajaline's brother.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So, what were we talking about, bro?
We were talking about Obama.
Oh yeah, how he was in Kokomo. So okay, that's right. So yeah, so like a week or two before that experience, we played that game. He was in Kokomo. So I remember when he was going through the line, I'm like, man, I'm gonna ask him. Like I'm gonna mention Kokomo. Like I'm gonna bring it up and see what he says. So I remember when he was shaking my hand, I told him like, and it's crazy. Like it was like he knew all of our names.
Yeah.
Know? Yeah. So I'm like, man, he know my name. Like Brandon Wood. Like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. How are you? You know, I'm from Kokomo. And because I knew he was just there, and he was like, oh, okay, nice. And then he like shook another hand or two. And I think it registered in his mind, like, you know, I was just in Kokomo. And he looked back at me. He was like, were you there when I was there a couple weeks ago? I was like, or wait, it was the year before he was in Kokomo. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, I was at Valpo then. You know, that was a experience that, you know, I look forward to hopefully maybe even talking to him about one day.
I remember when he shook my hand. And it's funny how you brought up how he kind of knew everybody's name. Like, I swear he went through the media guide or something, because when I shook his hand and told him my name, he's like, oh, he's like, nice to meet you, Anthony. He's like, you're graduating this year, aren't you? I was like, wait, what? Like, did like your Secret Service like give you like a book of like?
Yeah, you got, they feeding you information in your ear, bro?
Yeah, you got an earpiece in there right now, but I'll tell you what, man. There was a moment that, fast forward to the season where, we win the Big Ten regular season title, we share it. We shouldn't have shared it, let's be honest, because we should have beaten Ohio State at home on senior day, but Buford just hit a hell of a shot, and Keith played terrific D. But then we beat Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. And this is
real quick, one thing about senior night, real quick, one thing.
Go for it.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I might be the only Spartan senior that didn't kiss the middle of the court.
No, well, so that would be you and me and AT. Well, we kissed the center court after the game. Did you not do it after the game?
When they called us out, I believe when we were supposed to go out with our family and kiss the court, I wasn't told.
Oh, B Wood. Oh.
Yeah. So I one day maybe I might end up kissing the court one day.
Yeah, we'll have to get you. We'll have to get you to one of our reunions, and after the game.
Remember that, Coach Is.
Yeah, seriously, if you're listening to this, remember that. But after we had beat Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, I remember we were cutting down the nets, and I remember you were just sitting on the stage by yourself, just kind of soaking it all in. And I went over to you. I put my arm around you. I said, "Hey, is this what you signed up for?" And I remember you looking at me and said, "Hey, everything and more, man. Like this is what it was all about." And I remember that moment right there and then for you, I was like, yeah. I was like, this is what he signed up for. That's why he came to Michigan State. Not only to get better as a player, but to have experiences like this.
And just to kind of just thinking back through my college career that we just talked about, going Division I and not working out, losing the love for the game, going JUCO for a year, going back to a mid-major D1 for 2 years, still graduating on time after going to 3 schools in 4 years, having a chance to put my name in the draft and being able to talk about that experience, and then being able to open up our recruitment and go pretty much anywhere in the country, and then to start the season on the aircraft carrier, play against Duke at Madison Square Garden. I remember the crazy story. I remember we were walking out. We got to Madison Square Garden. We were getting ready for warm-ups. So some of us are probably out on the court already. Some of us are probably in, still getting ready. So I finished getting ready, and I'm walking out the tunnel. And you remember in the tunnel, they got like the fiberglass up on the side to where like you got to walk through that to get to the court. The first person I see walking onto the Madison Square Garden court, right when I walk out the tunnel, right when I get to the fiberglass, the very first person I look to my right and see, Spike Lee.
Really?
No lie. He's right. I'm saying like right there, like down by the glass. So that was my first dose of the Garden, walking onto the court, seeing Spike Lee right there. And then walking onto the court and, playing, I believe Melo and CP3 were there. I think like some of the Duke players, Battier and them, Plaxico Burress was there. Yeah. So just to be on the bench looking in the crowd and just seeing who's there, let alone be on the court. And, at that point, I had never played against Duke. So playing against Austin Rivers and Seth Curry and Coach K and that atmosphere, and me, this being my first experience at this level, besides the North Carolina game, it was like a movie to me. It was surreal. So, man, those are experiences that obviously meant a lot to all of us. But if you can relate it to my story and my journey to get to that point, let alone to finish the season and win a Big Ten championship, 2 of them, number 1 seed, man, I couldn't have finished my career in a better way. I feel like I've reached every goal, and I put in the work. That was most important. I put in the work, and I had some good people that really had love for me along the way. So, man, that was finishing at Michigan State the way that we did. I can't even put it into words.
I will say this about our team. And I will go to my grave saying this. Had Brandon Dawson not torn his ACL, we would have the Final Four.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like Final Four.
Yeah, I feel, man, that's a great team. You know, I feel like we had the great pieces, and I feel like, you know, coming off the season that y'all had before, you know, it was kind of a big letdown, you know, for Spartan Nation. And then to have the team and the kind of uncertainty of the team and a player like myself coming in with such a big role and then living up to the expectations as we did, exceeding them, you know, Big Ten championships, #1 seed, Sweet 16. Man, I feel like that team, I feel like it played a bigger role in Spartan history than what you may believe, you know, and people may realize, you know, especially the given point. And I'm only a 1-year Spartan saying that, so don't hold it against me. But given the season that Spartans came off of, having that season, that had to be the season that set up Michigan State for where they are now and everything that we've done within them years. So I feel like that team gets a lot of credit.
I agree with you, man, because, you know, Iz had a conversation with us before you came on campus, and that conversation was we need to put this program back on the map, because I feel like that 2010, 2011 year kind of really took us back big time. Like it was a major step back or two from us being one of the elite programs in the country. And then all of a sudden we proved to the entire world that year that, hey, you doubt us, this is what you're going to get. And it's set up for the future success that the program is having now. And I'll always say this, and again, like people who know me will probably say, "Oh, well, you're just a diehard Sparty, you know, you're just saying that because you played there." And I truly believe this. I think that our team is without question will go down as one of the top 10 teams of all time. You know,
for sure.
So obviously, like the top 5 or 6, you got the national championship teams, you got the Final Four teams, but after that, when it comes to, you know, as far as like toughness, you know, togetherness, and you know, the whole players play tough, players win mentality, that team was it. And in my opinion, we had one of the greatest leaders of all time in program history. I'm not knocking Mateen Cleaves, I'm not knocking, you know, Magic or Steve Smith or Denzel or Cash, anybody. But Draymond Green, we had one of the greatest leaders in the entire program's history, help guiding us and making sure that we were held accountable. And
for sure,
that's something, man, that we get to tell our kids and grandkids that this is what we were taught from each other. This is what our leaders taught us. This is what Coach Iz taught us. And definitely experiences, man, that, you know, we are going to share, you know, with family, friends, you know, kids, grandkids down the line.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, you know, and just where Draymond is now, it's like, he's leading everyone, you know, he's you know, he's representing himself and family, the school, the program, and each of us, you know. So I agree with you. Greatest leader that probably in sports, period, you know, given what he's done at the highest level now. But, you know, the same people that were probably leading him, now you put in the work and he finds himself leading, you know, a big part of the world, you know. So salute to Day.
That's our guy, man. Spartan Dogs for life. Last two questions I want to ask you, and then we'll get into the fun part here of the podcast. Give me your favorite Coach Izzo moment, whether it was personal, whether it was funny, whether it was serious. Like I want to know your favorite Coach Izzo moment during your time at Michigan State.
So I got 3 for you.
Go for it.
The first one, I remember I was new, like fresh on campus. It was early in the season. And maybe you remember this, maybe not, but we were in a film session, and I'm pretty sure it was planned. You know, I think it was part of my initiation. So we were watching film, and Izzo, he called my name and asked me about some of my stats from my Valpo season. He asked me, you know, what was your 3-point percentage at Valpo last year? And at that point, you know, I really didn't understand the importance of percent. I understood percentages, but I didn't really understand the importance of 1% or 0.5% or 0.2, you know? So I'm like, you know, I knew I shot like 35, 36, but I'm like, I just rounded it up. You know, I'm like, I shoot 40, coach. I shoot 40% from the 3. You know, he kind of looked and, you know, thought about it. He looked at Draymond. He was like, Draymond, what was Brandon's 3-point shooting percentage from last year? He was like 36.3, you know, said the exact number. So Izzo just looked at me like, basically like, so you lying to me, he had more word, he had a lot more words to it, but
Oh yeah.
he basically told me I was lying to him, so I don't think he necessarily thought I was lying to him, but it was one of them times where, I set myself up because I didn't understand the percentages, but at the same time, I've learned there's points where you gotta, like, he was gonna press me on that and hold me so accountable on that to where I probably didn't understand it at the time, to where I'm like, damn, coach, like I just messed up on a percentage, but he, that's what great coaches do. They challenge you, they press your buttons, they really test you and see if you built for if they can trust you, because if you're not able to, withstand the pressure of them, challenge you and being accountable, how can they trust you on the court? How can they trust you to represent what they stand for in real life? So yeah, that was a moment I always talk about. I messed up the percentages, but I learned a lesson from that. And another one, I remember one time, because man, I got a couple more stories. I got a story for OG and Coach DJ. So
okay.
Yeah, so man, as you know, like a lot of the things that we experience as players, they're behind the scenes. So most people aren't gonna see, So when people see our passion and our commitment to, stand up for these coaches that we've put this time in and done all these things with and spent all this time with, it's like I don't think people understand the role that they've played in our lives off the court. So I remember one situation, man, I've had to deal with a lot in my personal life, with my family and growing up and, even when I was up in school, so one thing I always, I got so much love for Coach DJ and Coach OG for is I remember one time my mother was in a situation where it was a pretty tough situation. And I had to, maybe you remember, I felt like it was in the best interest to leave, so I just left campus and just, got on the highway and shot right home, 3 hours straight to Kokomo just to make sure my mom was okay, so I get there and about 20 minutes later, OG and DJ pull up in my driveway.
No.
So so Coach Izzo had them, he understood the depth of the situation. It was one of them situations where, I don't care what you're talking about is like, I'm gone, I'm going home. I'm going to make sure my mom is okay. But the care for him to tell the coaches, to, go make sure he's okay, make sure they're okay. So they follow me, they pop up in my house and, I make sure my mom's fine. And, I remember them sitting in the living room with me, just kind of consoling her, consoling us and making sure we were good. So it's times like that, especially me just being there for only a couple months at that point, that really showed me the family, the togetherness that we always hear, so, much love and respect to Coach DJ and OG for that. And, just looking out for all of us in those type of situations. One more with Izzo kind of goes back to like the little situation that he had with Aaron Henry, like when he grabbed him and they had that situation, all those, and you probably seen, obviously you've been there longer, so you've probably seen way more of those type of situations than me. But one thing that always, like I said, I respected about Izzo is just the respect that he had for his players, specifically the upperclassmen, who've been there in our experience, for him to, for us to be able to challenge him back, and if we have an opinion or something to say, and even if it's not even if it's in a higher tone, even if it's a rash and, even if we're going at it, it's like he accepted that, and he allowed that, I feel like that's that was big in allowing us to, express ourselves, and him listening to that and not just reacting off of it, so I feel like, we could talk about plenty of situations like that where we had situations in practice where, he not only on the court, but off the court, just showing that love, and that compassion for us, that's what always, sits with me as I think back, just in times when I remember one time when my shoulder kind of slipped out in one of our practices And at the time, my mother was homeless.
Yep.
So she had came and was staying with me, and she was staying with me at my apartment. So at that day at practice, I don't know, I did something that Izzo thought was soft, and my mom was in the stands, and he was like, "Oh, you know, your weak ass shoulder, like you got your mom coming up here and staying with you because you just hurt your shoulder yesterday, you know." But he didn't know the whole situation, but
right.
He was gonna press us, you know, he's gonna press you to test you, and you know, at the end of the day, that, you know, made us very mentally tough, you know, and you know, even though I'm sure if I were to explain that situation to him, it would be a little different. It was like, you know, he's not going to let me show any sign of weakness. So if you hurt your shoulder and your mom's up here, I'm going to call you out about it.
Right.
But that's him, you know, that's him.
It is. And like, yeah, I think that's the one thing I love about is that, you know, he loves it when his teams are player coach teams and not just coach players team, because he wants to hear feedback from guys. He wants to, you know, kind of pick our brains a little bit. What do we see on the court? How are we feeling about, you know, playing defense and going over under ball screens? And the other thing I love about him is that, you know, he'll get on you. He'll get after you. He's in your face. He's intense with you. But you know what? At the end of the day, you do your job. You do what he tells you to do. He's going to come up behind you, pat you on the butt, pat you on the back, and say, "Hey, good work." Because if there's that old saying, and you've heard this, if a coach is talking to you, you know, if he's on you, that's a good thing. If a coach is not on you, and if he's not talking to you, something's wrong. You know, and so I think that's why I will always respect him so much, is because, you know, he holds us accountable. And I think that, again, we talk about accountability, and we held ourselves to the highest standard of accountability, whether it was you, me, Day, whoever, and played a big part in that too. And so just being able to have somebody like that, to know, number one, he'll go to battle for you, and number two, he wants you to be the best at what you do, whether, you know, he's intense about it or just pat you on the back. I think, you know, we were lucky to have a coach like that.
For sure. And also, I think a big difference that I recognized, you know, playing at different levels was, you know, attention to detail. You know, there's attention to detail at every level, and having experience at, you know, a high level mid-major, at a mid-major, at a JUCO, you know, and then at the highest level, that really is one of the difference, you know, just that attention to detail. And that kind of speaks back to me not knowing my percentage, you know, like I should have known that, you know. And another thing, just the preparation that it took to be prepared at that level, to be prepared for the game. It was like at the schools I had went to previously, even though they were high level schools at their level, it was like you did the film study with the coaches, you know, you did your little player personnel with your guard or big man coach. But outside of that, you know, you really weren't watching any film. You know, we'd come and get our shots up, you know, but it was like at Michigan State, it was like, man, if you're not watching film on your own or watching it with the coaches on your own, if you're not knowing every single play and every single move, like you're not going to be ready, and you're going to get exposed, you know? So it was like, you have to put in the extra film study, and you're not just at the gym at the late night getting up shots just to get up shots. It's like, no, I'm getting up these shots because if I miss, I'm not gonna be playing my part. You know, I'm gonna be on the bench. You know, so it was just with that higher level, it just came an intense level of attention to detail. You know, just managing our time, and you know, when you have leaders like Coach Izzo, and you know, Fife was there, OG, DJ. And then, you know, us seniors, Day, and us, obviously, you know, we just had a whole team, you know, we had a whole team. Yeah.
It was a complete package, bro. There's no question about that. All right. Last question I want to ask you before we get to the fun stuff. So you've had an incredible professional career thus far. You played in some incredible countries, places like Italy, Austria, Switzerland, Greece, Mexico, just to name a few. And then you got to play, you know, in the G League for a year with the Windy City Bulls. Kind of tell me about that experience playing in the G League.
So that experience I actually paid for. So
really?
So in the G League, if you're not familiar, some of the teams have local tryouts where anybody, whether they're, fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, or they're 40, 45 years old, they can pay $250 and come try out for the G League team. So following my season in Switzerland, I had just came off a back surgery, had a great rehab stretch where my team in Switzerland, they allowed me to come here and to Scottsdale. I got one of the top therapists in the area. I had a 90-day period where I could, they would pay for, my team in Switzerland. So out of that 90 days, I probably didn't miss 5-7 days out of that stretch. So that kind of got my body to a point, and then kind of transitioned into my basketball training to where like I found myself playing my best basketball at that time, my highest strength, my healthiest. So that surgery really gave me a chance to kind of reconstruct my body. So that combined with being in the gym, working with my trainer, Vaughn Compton here, who's one of the best trainers in the West Coast, it kind of had me like, I'm at my best, so I was like, I'm gonna just go to some different tryouts. I'm gonna pay to try out. And, one of them is going to invite me to training camp and I'm going to make the team. So I was like, that was my mindset. I never had any doubt that I would be in the G League that year, but I had to pay I went to Lakeland to work out for the Orlando team. I paid to go here for the Suns tryout. And I went to Chicago. I flew to Chicago and paid to go to their G League tryout. So I had a good tryout at each of them, but Chicago, it was definitely the best tryout I had. So the coach called me, invited me to the training camp, and, I was a tryout player. So it was like I was at the end of the roster. Like there was no chance no guarantee that I would be on the team. But at that point, I'm, in my 5th, 6th year, I'm experienced. Like I am playing at a high level. So it's like I didn't have any doubt in my mind that I would make the team. So I ended up making the team, and we had a good team. We had two-way guards in front of me. So it was like I was a tryout player. So when I would play good minutes, like I had a role, whether the two-way players were on our team, or whether we were up with the Bulls team, so like, but I would find myself in situations where being a tryout player, I would be in the starting lineup for a stretch, and then Antonio Blakeney or Ryan Archidiacono, they would come back down, and then I would be on the end of the bench, So it'd be like I would go from starting and, scoring 20 and getting double-doubles to the next 2-3 games not playing at all, But it's like at that point, and what's really helped me to adjust to that was my year at Michigan State, because up until that point, I pretty much have been the main focus. When I went to Michigan State, I learned how to play a role. I learned how to play my role and kind of perfect my role. So even in those games when I weren't playing, like when the players were down or I was playing spotty minutes, I was still playing good because I was mentally still prepared and still engaged. I didn't, I wasn't, tripping because of me not playing and the player coming down. And I wasn't worried about the politics or, none of that. I remember a game where I just got in at the end of the game and I made the game winning steal. So it's like I'm always prepared to, for any role, So I had a great year that season. Like I said, I was a tryout player. So it's like I had nobody in the organization that I was the guy. I was pretty much in it by myself, like just going crazy, like probably surprising people. Like but it's like I have no agent, like I've represented myself. So it's like you can flourish at that level, but when you're in the business and in the organization, it's a lot more to it, to where it's like, I've kind of just been in it by myself, so I kind of knew the situation I was in. I made the best out of it, and, I really, especially at that point in time in the G League, that was like early in my career, the G League really didn't have the best name. I was in the NBA organization and how we were treated and how the resources we had and the access to the facilities and, just being in that presence, it was like we were, I got a dose of it, so that was an amazing experience to, I remember when Zach LaVine was coming back, we would go to downtown. Our city was like 30 minutes outside of Chicago in Hoffman Estates. So like when players would be coming back from rehab, we would go downtown for like a week or two in practice, and those players would be with us, and the coaches would be around. So it was a great experience, to just see the work that it takes that those players put in at that level. Whether it's one of the best teams in the league or at that time, the Bulls haven't been the best, but that was an amazing experience. I learned a lot, and it was a great experience.
Man, I'm glad you got to have it too, man. And like you said, your experiences from Michigan State to help you kind of play that role that was given to you with the Windy City Bulls. So I couldn't be more happy for you, man, and everything that you've accomplished in your basketball career. So,
Appreciate that.
But it's time for the fun part now, man. So we're going to do some rapid fire questions. And like I said, these could be goofy, these could be serious, however you want to take it. So question number 1 is a question I always ask to my guests I have on. Question 1, strawberry or grape jelly?
Strawberry.
All right. Number 2, favorite fast food?
We don't eat much fast food, but man, I would say out of like the main core fast foods, it'd probably be Wendy's.
All right, good choice. Good choice. Question number 3, who is your favorite superhero and why?
It's a good question. Let's come back to that one.
All right. Question number 4. Question 4. Your first celebrity crush.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with one specific video popped in my mind. I'm gonna go with Christina Aguilera.
Okay, I like that. Question number 5. Best motivational speaker not named Anthony Ianni.
Man, I'm not gonna throw myself in there quite yet, but let me see. I gotta go with ET. I gotta go with ET. Yeah,
he's pretty good, man.
Yeah, just being able to meet him over the years, and he's been someone who's, I'm the type, like, throughout the years I've done a lot of work off the court, and I've really pushed the issue in a lot of ways, and kind of worked my way, into the room, into the table, but to see and hear and have people like ET kind of accept you, and and even like the little things like exchanging numbers and being able to text him whenever I want. Not that we talk often at all, but like throughout the years, I can send him a text now and there's no doubt that he will hit me back. So it's like, it's stuff like that year at Michigan State, like really, allowed me to continue to build my personal brand and allow me to gain more access and be accepted and listened to by people like him, so it really just kind of gives me more confidence, gives me more courage, and, but yeah, I got to go with ET, man. Shout out to ET.
Shout out to ET, man, the GOAT. All right, question number 6. So if you could go anywhere in the world, so take out the places you've already been to professionally. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Well, I've never been to an Asian country. So I would want to go to China, Japan, Korea, Philippines, somewhere over there.
Yeah.
I've never been to Australia, so I look forward to going to Australia. I've been to Africa, but I definitely look forward to going there many, many more times. So definitely look forward to going back to Africa. But I mean, pretty much been all over Europe. But yeah, probably if I could pick right now, I would want to probably go to an Asian country.
Okay, good choice. Question number 7, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Okay. Question number 8, comic books or magazines?
Magazines. I've never really been a comic book guy. I remember having a couple when I was younger, but I remember magazines, specifically Beckett's. You remember Beckett's?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, just trading cards. I remember looking up and trying to see what my cards are worth.
Oh man, those are the best. Question number 9. If you could teach one subject in school, what would that be?
Self.
Okay, I like that. And final question, who do you admire the most?
My mother. She's had man, her upbringing was tough. You know, she wasn't born into the greatest situation. Been through a lot from a young age, has battled with addiction from a young age, has, you know, put herself through so much, has put our family through so much, has, you know, admittingly, you know, at this point, but just to see where she is now, I'm not sure if you follow, but she's deep into her recovery now, to where last week she just was 18 months clean last week. So
that's fantastic.
Just to see where she's came and, you know, kind of where we've came, you know, obviously that's my mom and me, it was me and her. That's what we kind of started, you know, so just to kind of, especially as I've been doing a lot of reflecting the last 2-3 years and kind of putting the story all together, you know, we've been through a lot as a family, you know, and it takes intention, you know, to really come out of those type of situations, you know, and a big amount of discipline, you know, and commitment, you know, and knowing that, you know, that you don't have all the answers, you know, and leaning on the right people. So just to see how she's attacked her recovery and how committed she's been to her program, and now she's became like one of the leaders out here in the valley of all people who are battling addiction, you know. Fantastic. So she's leading all types of people, and she obviously throughout the years, you know, I never really understood. I've always shared a lot, you know, I've tried to share my story and where I've been, you know, and specifically sharing the tough parts of our lives and the stuff that, you know, that is not necessarily to be talking about. It's not necessarily to be spoken about and to be known, but when you're in a position of responsibility and you have a big vision and, you know, doing stuff like yourself, it's like, you know, it gets to a point to where it's like, no, that's what we have to share, you know, and that's what we got to talk about. Like, we got to talk about the tough times, you know, and, you know, because a lot of people think it is easy and has been simple. And it's like, no, we've just been good at knowing what to share, you know, and knowing boundaries, you know, but more and more I'm realizing the importance of sharing through her recovery, to where I'm looking up to her now. Like I truly look up to her. She's speaking to groups of 50 people, you know, and I don't even think she really understands the role she's playing. She does, because if you know her, you know her personality, she's confident, you know, she's a great personality and a big personality and a big presence. But I think she even has more potential than she even realizes, you know. So, you know, she's really, you know, helping me gain that courage that it takes to share those tough times. And, you know, because a lot of them we live together, you know. So I'm really looking up to her. I'm really proud of her, and, you know, just my family in general. You know, we're each putting in the work in our own way to, you know, become better individuals, you know. So I think, you know, that's important for us as individuals and as families, you know, to continue to grow together, you know, whether that is taking time by yourself or, you know, taking space and, you know, or doing it together. You know, I think it's important. And, you know, I'm, you know, proud of where my families came from. Man, we've been through so much, man. There's so many more stories we could talk about, but, you know, I'm sure we have plenty of time.
I love it, man. All right, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do before we end this, a positive message for the week for the listeners. So your positive message of the week to the listeners.
Positive message for the week. Well, I mean, I'll have to reflect it back to just what class I would teach, just self, you know, and just, I've been personally, you know, I've been fortunate to be able to do what I love and do what I'm passionate about pretty much every day of my life, you know. So I've been able to find myself and become myself and be myself, even unconsciously, through doing what I love, you know. So I understand that that's rare, you know. So whether it's finding yourself through a sport or, you know, through volunteering or through a certain subject or through a certain trade, you know, try to find something that you're passionate about, you know. And if I feel like if you're passionate enough about it, you'll naturally come into your own, you know, and And even coming into your own, there's different phases of that, you know, as I'm sure you're aware of. But, you know, just, you know, I've always wanted to motivate people to do what they love and reach their goals and, you know, pursue more and want more and hope for more and know that more is even possible. But one thing I'm realizing is it's hard to even get to that point of thinking about your goals and your dreams and all that if you can't even deal with your own thoughts, you know? So it's like, I not only want to help people, you know, reach their goals and reach their dreams of being an athlete or being an artist or being a, you know, a community leader. You know, I want to help people, you know, one-on-one and help them, you know that people are there to listen. You know, a lot of people don't have someone to listen. So it's like, I'm just learning more and more the trauma that we come from and the past that we come from and even the past of our family and our ancestors and how to deal with that at even deeper levels. So, you know, I encourage people to just, you know, try to find yourself through what you love to do, through what you're passionate about. And then when you go through certain things and, you know, tough times come and it's time to, you know, either persevere or kind of fold, you know, find that strength to, you know, lean on someone. You know, if you need to talk to someone. Like I said, I've been fortunate to have, you know, my parents, both parents in my life. They've always been there, they've never really been the type to really like sit us down and tell us this is what you need to do, this is how you need to think. They kind of just let it come organically. But as I continue to go into college, I've had some great listeners. Like I've had some very good listeners and people that allowed me to really talk, you know, and really become vulnerable and, you know, talk about anything. You know, I've sat down with Izzo and man, we've talked about stuff that, you know, I barely even knew him at that point. Obviously I was on his team, but it's like most people know people for their whole lives and don't even feel comfortable talking to them. I found an advantage of being vulnerable and talking and, you know, even to a fault and sometimes, you know, but I've been fortunate enough to have good listeners to where now it's like, I feel like I'm a pretty good listener. I'm becoming a better listener to where now I can communicate better. And now it's just, you know, making sure my message is right and making sure my delivery is right, you know? So, man, find yourself through your passion, through what you love. And when you're dealing with problems, like face them problems, you know, it's kind of been a gift and a curse to me to be doing what I love and have, you know, go to these different countries because even when I've been going through something tough, it's like, it's been easy for me to get through it because it's like, I know that there's a new country coming next, you know, or a new team coming next, or a new event I need to plan, or a new networking event I'm gonna go to. So it's like, it's always been easy for me to move on through those tough times because I filled my life with action and with doing stuff and with, you know, actually putting myself out there. So, man, I know that's a lot, but, you know, I want to encourage people to like just face their thoughts, man, and deal with them. And even the tough things, like just, you know, there's people that really care, you know, for people that I know there's a lot of people that feel like they don't have a voice, you know, that people aren't listening to them. They're already in tough situations and tough positions where, you know, they don't have the resources that a lot of people do have, or a lot of us have come to have. So, man, I really just have gained a higher understanding and a higher compassion for people, and kind of just combining that with the worldly view that I've kind of developed through my travels. It's like, man, I just want to help people. You know, I just want to do the mission work. I want to do the groundwork. I want to travel the world and just, you know, help people, you know, face to face, you know. So that's a lot in that little answer, but that's my message.
I love it, B. Wood. Ladies and gentlemen, this was my interview with my guy, my Spartan brother for life, my fellow Spartan dog, professional basketball player, former Spartan, former Valpo All-Star,
Yes,
and
sir.
from the Kokomo, Indiana. B. Wood, I love you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And you already know, man, I got your back for life, man. That's never going to change.
I already know, bro. Love you too, man. Appreciate you, man. And shout, man. Like every time I know every time we talk, man, just even you, man, somebody like yourself who's traveling around and speaking, and, you know, you see the passion in me for what want to do in the future. So just to see you and follow you and have seen your journey and watch your videos, it's inspiring to me, you know. So, you know, I know I couldn't give you as an answer, but definitely someone who has big aspirations to kind of do what you're doing. I'm looking up to you and much respect to what you're doing, bro.
Thanks, B Wood. I appreciate you, my guy.
Yes, sir, man. All love, bro.
I want to thank my guy, Brandon Wood, for coming on to the podcast today. It was just incredible catching up with him and reliving some incredible memories from our senior year at Michigan State, being a part of the Big Ten championship team in the regular season and the tournament championship team as well. Just awesome memories catching up and reliving some great times. And also getting to know more about him, his experiences living in Kokomo, Indiana in high school, the reasons why he left Southern Illinois and Valpo, and just incredible conversation. But the one thing I got out of my conversation with B Wood today is that, you know, he bet on himself, not once, but multiple times, and he won. And that's my message for this week. And the one thing I've always strived for this podcast is to always make sure that I send the listeners home with a good vibe for the week, a good positive message. So this week, I want to talk about betting on yourself in life. If you feel like there are opportunities that you feel like you can just latch onto and run with, bet on yourself. Because there are going to be times where you may feel like that others may feel like you can do a certain thing, but you believe in yourself. Go take those opportunities, grab them, run with them, because you bet on yourself. And that's the one thing I loved about, you know, talking with B Wood today, is that not once, not twice, not 3 times, but close to 4 or 5 times he bet on himself and won, despite others around him saying, well, he may not be able to do this. I don't know if he can do that. But he had the right people in his corner as well to help him get to where he needed to go. And my father taught me something that I'll never forget. And that is, you have to believe in yourself in life. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then nobody else will. So continue to believe in yourself no matter what. And continue to bet on yourself and take chances. Take those chances that others may not take, because there are only certain opportunities that come at you once in life. And B Wood had multiple opportunities, and he bet on himself and he won. So whatever opportunity is presented to you in life, whatever chances are presented to you in life, bet on yourself. Never doubt yourself. Keep moving every day, and always know you got that one person in your corner that's always going to be there with you every single step of the way. So always continue to bet on yourself and never be doubtful in life. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another great episode. I want to thank Brandon Wood again for coming on to the podcast today. We will see you guys next time when we have Antoine Simmons, former Michigan State football linebacker who is going into the NFL draft. We will have him on the next episode. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Peace and love, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.